too smooth, that mud talking to have your ass in a wreck. Who's signing your check? Pussy better do what he says. We shutting down shows. Ain't gotta put no price in your head. Man, I'm coming for your tongue for all that shit that you said.
Gonna make the profiles boom, 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 boom. What it is, I'm gonna tell you what it is, man. As you can tell by that thumbnail, we are doing an extensive detailed profile on one member of the Fresno Bulldog gang. And to be precise, we're talking about the Northside Fresno Bulldog gang and one of the founding members of a well-known barrio or clica in Fresno, Pleasant Street. Simon, I've talked about the homeboy K9, Terry Rayman, who did his indubitably in CYA, and then of course went to the penitentiary and handled his business like a perro should. But at the same time, this Vato we're talking about right here, yes, it's kind of like we're entwined, homes, because I've always known about this Vato, and I kind of knew him when I was younger, but so scared he didn't know me like that. We're going to get into it, man, a detailed version of the specific acts of one Fresno Bulldog, and in that fashion, shout out to the Vato on the thumbnail, Mr. Mario Barboza, also known as Kilo de Fresno. Now, growing up in the city of Merced, this Vato was out there wiggling. He was wiggling in a direct fashion, but he was a youngster just like myself. And growing up in the city of Merced, yes, indeedy. How does that work? Gunner, the wind's blowing. How is he a Fresno Bulldog from the city of Merced? We're going to get to that. Calm your nerve. Hey, so let's get calm down now, right? Let's get into it. This Vato's originally from Merced, you know, and only ones that know from way back 30 plus years would know that. Okay, a lot of people that know him know that he has a history in Fresno. He's a very well-known figure in Fresno. He has established a lot. He is an original F-14 Bulldog. Yes, indeed, he wrote graffiti on the bus. But at the same time, yes, he is derived. He is a product of the city of Merced, the 209 district. Don't get it twisted. Central Valle, you already know what it is. And he has an extensive family in the city of Merced. I know a lot of his brothers. I know of a lot of his brothers. They're well-known individuals, hitters, and active norteños in the city of Merced. And all I can say is respects to them Vatos for wiggling the way they do. Bang, bang. It be like that sometimes. But growing up in the area where I grew up, I knew who Mario Barboza and his half-brother Michael Barboza were. You know, they were very well known. Now, me being a couple years younger than them, I was just a little mocoso, a little booger, a Mucinex, just trying to cruise on my lowrider bike and peep the game and see what was going on and the stilo around me. And at the same time, Mario was already well known. He was out there causing havoc. He was already getting into a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Now, in the city of Merced at that time, what would happen is that if you caught a petty crime, the judge had the opportunity to bring you before his court and give you one or two things. One, so I was scared. You can go to juvenile hall, get stretched out to YA, and Barboza, we'll see you later. Or two, they can kick you out of the county, you know, based on what your parents had going on. And if there was another county for you to wiggle to, there were many instances where people got kicked out of the county. Shit, I've seen people get kicked out of California. I got a homeboy right now in Arkansas, mad than a motherfucker because he can't come back to Califas forever. But they decided at the tender age of 12 to kick Mario Kilo Barboza out of Merced. Of course, he had a father that was living in the city of Fresno. So without being too much said, that's where he wiggled to Fresno. And that's where he started to establish his roots. That's when the gang banging started to become real. That's when he ingrained himself in the cultura that was around him, which of course was the Fresno Bulldog cultura. Now, living in the city of Fresno, Bulldogs were all around him. Now, they were F-14 Bulldogs at this time. They were still the 209 Central Valle. It was still Fresnal. They were still doing their thing. Now, at the same time, this Vato, already coming from the city of Merced, was a norteño. So he established his norteño roots in the city of Merced and wiggled on to Fresno. So it wasn't no big thing. It wasn't nothing but a chicken wing. It was just like, hey, Sasuke, hey, I used to live in Merced, homie. Now I'm repping Fresno. What it is, man, let's get it. And everybody accepted him and embraced him, and the canalismo was real. Now, you have to understand, at this time, the Fresno Bulldog gang was up under the Norteño Bandera. So they were Fresno Bulldogs 14, F-14ers. Now, moving to the north side of Fresno at that time was different. Everybody knew that the main barrios that were established in the city of Fresno were mainly on the east side of Fresno. Of course, you had College, Bond, and several other clicas and gangs that were very well known in Fresno, and all of them resided on the east side. So if you were the one, if you were what it was, you were always on the east side. Now, coming from north side, there weren't too many barrios. I think there was like one little established hood at that time, which was Emerson, and eventually over time, they gravitated into Pleasant Street. Now, the reason I wanted to profile 1 Kilo is he was a very known well figure when I was in CYA. So he was one of the main 3 targets. When you talked about Fresno Bulldogs, the 3 vatos that they used to always tell us to get at was 1 Kilo, Barboza. Sabes que the vato has major hands. Make sure that you handle him by any means necessary. Another one was Spider de Fresno. Make sure that you knock his block off if you get a chance to. And the other one, of course, was Mr. Phantom. And we all know who that vato is and his history. Sabes que he makes motherfuckers disappear. They call him the Magic Man. But anyways, these three were targets. And their names were well circulated amongst the Norteño collective. We always knew that if we ran into these guys, we were supposed to get off. We were mad at because they were very dangerous individuals. And they were true believers in their cause. So about the year 1991 is when Kilo and several others established a clica, a barrio on the north side of Fresno. Now, of course, vatos before them, like I said, there was a little clica named Emerson Street that actually gravitated into Pleasant Street. But there were several other Bulldogs that just claimed north side, barrio north side Fresno, and so on and so forth. But there were several individuals that started the Fresno Bulldogs, right, as far as on the north side in Pleasant Street. One of them being Kilo, K9, Chucky, Güero, Gangster, shit, who else? Whispers, Fleco Boy. These were well-known individuals from Pleasant Street. There were many others, but at the same time, this was the inner circle. These were the vatos that to this day are active in the function, right? Still comprise and make up Pleasant Street and what that barrio entails, and they have instilled the indoctrination of the Bulldog gang into each other. And sabes que somos canales, kicking it, homie, a tight-knit group to the end. Now, I told you about K9. I've profiled Mr. K9. Him and Güero were actually two white boys from Northside Fresno that were embraced and continue to this day to be the ones. Of course, they did have a black homeboy who was another one that was knocking people out the box daily, Mr. Chucky. And I remember hearing about Chucky because at this time, he was a well-known hitter and a well-known Fresno Bulldog. And it was like, hey, if we ever see that Africano Chucky, get off. Hey, Chucky, get up. You know, everybody knew what time it was. But Kilo was probably the most notable, him and K9, the most notable well-known figures from the north side of Fresno at that time. Or at least I thought so. Now, there was always a kinship there with me and him because me being from Merced and him being from Merced, I used to say to myself, if I see the vato, I'm going to give him a pass. At the same time, I knew if he see me, he probably wouldn't. That was just his style and his nature. Now, I've actually tapped into people that tap into this individual, and it is well known and well said that he's also spoke to them upon the breakup of the Norteños and the Fresno Bulldogs, where he has quoted the saying, "Sabes que everyone always thinks when it comes to the Norte that they took an L, that it was all bad for them, that the war started, man." He goes, what about us? What about what the Bulldogs went through? And that had me thinking. You know, that had me thinking. I'm always looking at it from one perspective, one side being the Norte side, and not looking at it from a Bulldog aspect. Okay, what was it like for these individuals when they split up from us? You got to understand, a lot of these vatos had F-14s on their face, dog paws, Norteño on their chest, huelga birds. They were Norteños, so the split, so you couldn't just scrub that shit off with Ajax. Something had to happen, right? Hey, Sasuke, watch out, we're not Norteños anymore. What about that big old huelga bird on your neck? Sasuke, I'm gonna turn it into a fucking bird with the spikes around the neck. So it's gonna be a huelga dog, right? Orale, okay? Sounds good in the hood. At the same time, I could understand their plight, having to step away from something they were truly committed to and truly believed in. Now, of course, not all of them went along with this decision. Eventually, the Bulldog organization would pull away fully, and now all these youngsters that are representing Fresno Bulldogs, a lot of them don't know their cultura and their history. There are a lot that do, and I respect the shit out of all the gente. At the same time, whether you're active, you're not active, whatever the case may be, I respect you, homie, in Fresno, because I know Bulldogs have held it down for several years, several decades, and the war has been on, and these vatos never stepped away from the war. They're always been warriors, and they're always representing, you know, their true beliefs, their cause, their organization. For that, I say kudos, homie. Respect, sabes que, bang, bang from the gun. You like those, right? You like those. You know you don't fucked up, right? Anyways, trip out. So Kilo and his homeboys started Pleasant Street around 1991. You know, around 1991, and it wasn't well known that this clica had started. See, several of these individuals got together and they thought that for no other reason, they should start fucking, a hood, their own little clique. So I was like, hey, watch out, we're going to start our own shit. We're going to represent to the fullest for ourselves. And so they started Pleasant Street, these handful of homeboys, and what happened was they all started getting incarcerated in the California Youth Authority. Now, at this time, like I said, Fresno Bulldogs were still Norteños in 91, so they went in a northern fashion, in an F-14 fashion, and they carried and conducted themselves as such. Now, at the same time, one of the most well-known Northside Fresno Bulldogs that I've happened to met in real life, so I was scared, I've seen him in action. So I was scared his stick game was real, his pedazo game was way up to par, was one Frank Bonilla, Bubba de Fresno, Northside. He had got incarcerated at the tender age of 12, and he had been doing time for a long time. I ran into him in Fred C. Nellis, and we're going to get to that story in a minute. But anyways, trip out. So Kilo gets incarcerated. Okay, he gets incarcerated, and he ends up in CYA amongst one very well-known Bulldog from the east side, Mr. Phantom. Now, of course, everybody knows who Phantom is. He got famous on the MSNBC. He's a well-known figure and a hitter within the city of Fresno. Of course, I've spoken on him many times here on Gunners Profiles as well as Gunners Collective, and I had the privilege of interviewing him, and I know exactly who Phantom is and what he's all about. You know, I remember when I was in the California Youth Authority, this vato was in Fresno at the time, and he was knocking people's canines out. This is just real life. But Kilo actually did time on the same yardas in the same buildings with Phantom, so he knew Phantom pretty extensively and pretty well. They were good homeboys, and they wiggled as such. So trip out. What happens is their fates would meet up again. And it's like that with people. Sometimes you don't know gente. You get to meeting them. Hey, it ends up being all good. It is what it is. And then at the end of the day, boom, you go your own ways. And Sasuke, you meet up in the mix later on. Kind of like me and the homeboy Droopy from Turlock. We didn't see each other for years. And then Sasuke, bang, bang, our lives intersected or intercrossed. That's how life is. So Kilo ends up doing his YA stint. And I remember he was there at the same time I was there. We were just in different places. I was with this homeboy K9, his good camarada, his taita, down in Nellis, and we were motherfucking together and then against each other, right? So the game was going down. Yes, we were wiggling indubitably. Now, when this split happened, Kilo was in Preston, so he got right in the mix quick. And I remember that was kind of a stronghold for the Bulldogs. There was a lot of Bulldogs in OH clothes at the time and Preston. These were the two places that they usually set perros, right? There wasn't too many of them in Carrollton. Later on, when I did get to Carrollton, I met several of them and we were cool. On that yard, Norteños and Bulldogs did not function together, but we coexisted. In Preston, we did not coexist. It was on site every time we seen each other. So I was scared, get off where you were mad at, and motherfuckers were always mad, right? So Kilo was involved in the mix and he started making his name for himself. That's why we were hearing, and I was getting directives, palomas, huilas, missives, whatever you want to call them, that were saying, hey, this is a target, this is a target. Of course, Kilo's name was hyphened in big fucking bold letters, and he is also a target because if you run up on this guy or he sees you, he'll fuck you off. Period. Just the way it was. So anyways, he does his time in CYA and he handles it. He's down for the war, he's ready for the war, and he does what he has to do. Now, of course, just like me and you and anyone else that's been incarcerated, hey, that's what's to be expected of you. If you're a true soldado and you truly believe in what you believe in, motherfucker, you can't roll it up and be no sucker fish, especially if you're from the city of Fresno. They were always short. Now, being a Norteño, being a Northerner at that time, I knew what it was to be in oppressed opposition. I knew what it was for the Sureños to be 1,000 deep and us to be only 30 on the yarda. Oh, yes, there was blood, right? But at the same time, now you got to imagine the Fresno Bulldogs. This organization was not only going at it with the Norteños, but the Sureños as well. And they were really up ship creek with half a paddle. So I was scared. Most of them could row that boat, but not necessarily in what direction they knew they wanted to go to. So it was ugly. It was chaos in the California Youth Authority. Now, of course, the Youth Authority doesn't really count, but this man would eventually go to prison where the wiggle got definitely real. So he gets out. Of course, he gets definitely in the mix. In about 95, 96, when all these Bulldogs from Pleasant Street, these founders, are starting to get out, that's when they're starting to put their barrio on their map. The barrio is starting to be known, you know what I mean? Before this, prior to this, no one had really heard about Pleasant Street. I mentioned it to a couple of autos from the east side of Fresno. Hey, what's up with your homeboys from the north side from Pleasant? They were like, Pleasant? So I was scared. I don't know nothing about Pleasant. You talking about Pleasant and Andrews, bro? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, homie, that started in the Havenbrook Apartments. You know, a handful of homeboys that really did their thing. They wiggled out there, turned dog on us, and it was all good. He's like, shit, homie, I can't call it like an alcoholic, right? Never heard of it. Well, that was because when they started this little clique out, these few friends, they all got incarcerated. So now they're getting out. Now it's 95, 96, and they're really in the mix. They're already established Bulldogs. They're no longer Norteños. Of course, a lot of them have F-14. They're derived from the original group humps, the real ones, the motherfuckers that were putting it down in a better Norteño fashion for a long time. So they start to get out, and he quickly gets in the mix, 1 kilo. And of course, just like any other person that's out there moving and grooving, he finds himself caught up in a few situations. Now, in the year 2000, they sit his ass down in the Fresno County Jail where he's fighting an aggravated attempted murder and a vicious mayhem, right? Now, of course, he goes and gets him a lawyer who gives another lawyer a piggyback ride, and him and his co-defendants stick true to the motherfucking mud and put their muzzles on lock. So I was scared their spikes are sharpened, and they're in a bulldog fashion. They're functioning on an active bulldog yard. Now, of course, the city of Fresno, that's pretty much every yard. If you're a Norteño, you're hitting that bubble. If you're a Sureño, you're pretty much non-existent. There ain't too many there. So he's functioning with all his homeboys, and he happens to run back into one Mr. Phantom, the east side of Fresno, who's actually at the time fighting his 2 murder cases, his original murder cases for the robbery murders. So trip out, he's sitting there with vatos like Phantom and several other well-known bulldogs, and he's fighting this case, and he ends up getting a good deal, man. Like I said, he had a lawyer giving another lawyer a piggyback ride, and he ends up taking 6 years. Him and his co-defendant get on down the Yellow Brick Road, and it's on and cracking. Him and Phantom actually pulled up to Wasco Reception together, whereas the homeboy Kilo end up hitting B yard and fucking Phantom hits D yard, and that was the last they ever seen of each other. But like I said, paths always cross in the game. You know, it's not a big world out there. People say it's a big old world out there, Charlie. It's really not. It's a small world after all. Orale, shout out to Disney. It's a small world after all, and I will say in a menudo style, in a direct fashion, that when you're living that gang life, that underworld organization life, part of gangs, street gangs, groups, clubs, organizations, whatever the fuck it may be, you're going to run into a lot of people. That's just how it is. You might see a vato down the Yellow Brick Road one day, and then he'll be the one hiding behind the curtain. You just never know. But lives always intersect. I've done that plenty of times. I've ran into Sureños from way down south and then told a vato up north about him. They're like, yeah, I know, that's my primo. What? That's gay. Watch out. I owe you one because your primo done booked me one time. Serio? Nah, I'm just playing on me, but at the same time, we got to get it anyways. It goes down like that. So anyways, Kilo ends up taking the 6. And he sits down, of course, with a lot of the other perros, and he does his time like a true soldado. Fully active, fully functioning. Now, he's, of course, a YA baby. So he's of the firm belief that anybody can get it at any point in time. And, of course, that was my mentality. You know, when you're in YA, man, a lot of people like to say, Sasuke, none of that shit counts. Who gives a fuck about YA? This is where the hitters play, man. In YA, it's pretty much a free-for-all and do what you do. But in prison, it's pretty structured, and it's all based on politics and the political makeup of the group you're from. And that's absolutely fucking positively correct in a menudo style or in a pozole style. It doesn't matter what style, it's absolutely correct. But I will say this, giving you the time that you did in YA and being laced the way you're laced and that motherfucking I don't give a fuck attitude can sometimes play a positive role in what you got going on in prison. For one, you got the leg up on other people. You know what it is to be in a group setting, to be around a lot of hostile individuals in a hostile environment. And when wartime comes, you know what you have to do. At the same time, man, sometimes you get a little bit anxious and you jump the gun one time for your mind, right? And bang, bang, you get off where you're mad at, and there could be repercussions for your actions. In any case, him being a YA baby, he's already well known in the city of Fresno. He's already well known in the system. He's down to do what he does, and Kilo holds it down. Now, of course, he gets out of prison, never to return. Okay, he gets out of prison with the mentality, of course, I'm going to go back to the city of Fresno. I'm going to do what the fuck I got to do. I'm going to maintain. I'm going to put it down for my homeboys. And everybody respects him. And by now, the north side of Fresno, Pleasant Street, is a very well-established barrio. Like I said, there was another old school clica called Emerson Street. And maybe about 5 of them are still representing Emerson Street to this day that hung true to their colors and true to their bandera. But at the same time, most of them took into Pleasant because Pleasant Street, every one of these vatos was well known, man. I remember hearing about Fleco Boy, Gangster, Güero, Canine, Chucky, Kilo, all these guys, Whispers. These were very well-known dudes, very well-known bulldogs, and they all presented themselves in a vicious fashion. So when you got that core group, you know, that are out there really representing, people like to take into that. They want to be with motherfucking hitters. They don't want to be with motherfucking, what the fuck, quitters, right? Charlie, vatos don't get down like that. So, of course, he finds himself back in the city of Fresno, where, of course, he meets an old lady, he starts to have children, and he starts to live the family lifestyle. Now, at the same time, when you're out there in Fresno, you're going to get caught up in the political makeup of what's going on in Fresno. Now, I know you're saying to yourself right now, Gunner, they don't have politics in Fresno. It's not like that. Sit down, but also I'm going to give you some klecha, homie, that you can't get in college. You know what I mean? Straight up knowledge trip. In every different city, especially in the Central Valle homes, there's politics on them streets. There's different gangs, homes, that are structured up and play different roles in different parts into that city, and everybody is fucking gang banging. So of course you're gonna have Crips out there, 6 Deuce Diamond Crips. You're gonna have TRG. You're gonna have Sureños from Sanger. You're gonna have Fresno Norteños on the west side of Chandler. You're gonna have a lot of these different groups that have different rules, regulations, and politics in their barrio, in their hoods, in their turf, homie. And they might overstep their boundary. Of course, that's Bulldog country. Bulldogs are the deepest, they're the most well-established, they're the most well-deserving because they've been holding it down for longer. But at the same time, I will say that other gangs are holding their own and they're getting it in. Okay, so you have to be on your P's and Q's. And of course, their politics overspill into what you got going on. And if Sabes que, it could get ugly fast. So Kilo starts to realize that this is not the best place to raise a familia. Now, of course, he's ingrained in the politics out there. He's ingrained in the homieism. He's ingrained in the bulldogism. He's ingrained in the perros and what they've always established and stood for. But at the same time, he knows that his kids mean more to him than anything. Okay, so he decides to move out of state. To what state and to what degree of state he's in, Sasuke, that's neither mine nor your business. I know it, but hey, Sasuke, we're going to put that on the back burner like arroz and let it simmer. The Vato takes his familia out of state. And not for no other reason, like he's on the run or he's scared or chale or boop, 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 boop. This Vato's still active, still with the business. He just decides, man, that he wants to make a better life for his children. Now, I totally agree. I totally agree. Vato, Sasuke, in life, you want to do better if you knew better for your kids. You want to give them more than you had. And this Vato had a crazy life. See, his life parallels mine. We both got incarcerated at a very young age. Him not necessarily for murder at that point in time. You know, he ended up catching an attempted later. But we went through the trials and tribulations as two soldados in YA. And then from YA, we both gravitated to prison. Then from prison, we both gravitated back to the guys from which we were wiggling, activated like a motherfucker. Now, at the same time, me knowing Kilo's familia and knowing how they get down in the city of Merced, he comes from a very well, prominent, vicious family. I mean, all his brothers, primos, oh my, these motherfuckers are down to the fullest and still are out there fucking getting their Bangladesh on. But at the same time, oh boy, he said, fuck this, Holmes. He's going to do like Bob and says, I'm going to do it rocking. I'm going to do it rolling. And he rolled up out of there, Holmes, in good standings. Moved out of state and, of course, is raising his family, you know, in a lowrider fashion. You know, I chopped it up with someone very close to him, very, very close to him, that told me, hey, Sasuke, he's now into lowriders. He's getting his kids into the lowrider scene. He's always going to have that look, man. He's always going to be a bulldog. He's always going to represent the original F-14 Bulldogs, Northside Fresno, Pleasant Street. But at the same time, he understands the situation and the plight he's in, being that this is the future, Humps, and it's time to do what you do for your kids and let that shit go. Are you going to fucking let it go to the Vachale, Humps? He's always going to be a bulldog. He's always going to rep. He's always going to have that love for his cause. But at the same time, he knows that in order to keep his kids away from that, he needs to keep them out of the city of Fresno and get their minds on something positive and something that's associated with the cultura. And for that, I say, man, forever forward with you, Kilo, Humps. Respects for that one, man. Because I try to keep my kids ingrained in the cultura myself, whether it be lowriders, whether it be them smooth-ass Ben Davis, bang, bang, you know how we do it? The brown skin is forever forward with that movement. Bam. So I know a lot of you guys say to yourself, well, Gun, why do you give so much love to the Bulldogs? Because they're real, bro. There's been a lot of real ones. Now, I give love to the Norteños. I give love to the Sureños. I give love to the Crips, the Bloods, the Cumis, oh my. And, of course, the Woodpile. But at the same time, I got a lot of love for the Perros because at one point in time, yes, they were Norteños. And I rocked real close with them being from the Deuce 09 era and the Deuce 09 area. You know what I mean? It wasn't nothing scary, homie. The 90s, we were banging. So I'll always have that canalismo, that fucking embracement and that love. And they got love for the gun at the same time because I speak highly of the situation they're in, you know. Hey, you tell me what other fucking volumes stood strong against every adversary, man, and are still around decades later. Not a lot of motherfuckers. Wait, I'll wait. Simon, yeah, I'll hold. The wind's blowing, man. When you can fucking tell me about that, other than Maravilla, 18, and MS, Sasuke, then we're talking. Anyways, with that being said, man, respects to Kilo, one of the founding members of Pleasant Street, Fresno Bulldogs. It's nothing but respect, homie. I hope at the end of the day you get everything that you want coming to you, man, because you're a well-deserving soldado. Someone who went through the trenches just like I did and came out with just a few little scars. So I was scared, but you dusted yourself off and try it again, and it's all good in the hood. With that being said, man, respects to him and all his homeboys and his barrio and the Bulldog organization. You know what it is. I hope that you move fast with a purpose. You go out there, you get everything that you want coming to you. Remember, at the end of the motherfucking day, right? It's all about going out there, struggling and striving and doing like Kilo was doing for his children and showing them another way. They are our future, man. They are the ones that we need to bring to the table, man, and unite all this together for, so that they have a better life and they could prosper better than we did. You know, I got gold. I'm not doing too bad, but at the end of the day, that's all I fucking got. You know what it is, man. If you like this, please like and subscribe. If you don't, you can hit that thumbs down. Heavy as the head, that's going to wear the Chicago Bulls crown. You know what it be like, man. Respects again to Kilo for letting me do this profile via your homeboy. It's all good in the hood, homie. Shout out to Pleasant Street and the Bulldogs. Bang, bang, in that fashion.